I came home late and found dinner was waiting. My neighbor Apache said, "You must be hungry, right?" The sun had long gone down, leaving the streets outside cloaked in soft shadows. Streetlights flickered lazily, casting long lines across the sidewalks, and a gentle wind whispered through the trees. The protagonist, Alex, had spent the entire day running from one obligation to another. Meetings that seemed endless, phone calls that kept interrupting, and deadlines that loomed over like invisible walls had drained every ounce of energy. Every step toward home felt heavier than the last, as though the weight of the day had found its way into their shoes. Alex's apartment building was quiet as they approached. The faint hum of the refrigerator in the lobby and the occasional creak of the stairwell were the only sounds that greeted them. Usually they enjoyed this stillness, a rare pause after the chaos of the world outside. But tonight, even the quiet seemed to echo the exhaustion they carried in their bones. As they inserted the key into the lock, a strange, comforting smell drifted out from the apartment. It was subtle at first, almost like a whisper, but it was enough to make Alex pause. The aroma was familiar yet different. Rich, warm, and inviting. It wasn't the usual scent of leftover takeout or reheated meals. This was something made with care, something freshly prepared. Curiosity sparked amidst the fatigue, and Alex hesitated, wondering if they were imagining it. Pushing the door open, the familiar sight of the apartment greeted him, but something felt unusual. There, on the small dining table near the window, sat a meal perfectly arranged. Plates were set with care, and steam rose gently from the dishes, curling upward like little ribbons in the air. It was as if the table itself had been waiting, patient and ready to welcome them home. Alex blinked, unsure whether to feel joy, suspicion, or embarrassment. They had never expected anyone to think of them like this. Dinner prepared, ready to eat without any request or reason. It felt like a small miracle after the long hours and relentless stress. Before they could even step closer, a voice came from the doorway, warm and cheerful. "You must be hungry, right?" Alex turned sharply and saw their neighbor, Apache, standing there. Apache was someone they had exchanged occasional greetings with over the past few months but had never really known well. Tall, with an easy smile and a presence that felt calm and steady, Apache seemed to carry a quiet energy that could make anyone feel at ease. Tonight, that energy was here, in this unexpected gesture of kindness. Alex froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. I wasn't expecting this," they stammered, feeling a mix of surprise and gratitude. Their cheeks warmed, not out of embarrassment, but from the sudden awareness that someone had noticed them, truly noticed them, in a way they hadn't felt in a long time. Apache laughed lightly, shaking their head. "I know you've been working hard lately." "Doc, I thought maybe you'd like a proper meal when you got home." Their voice was gentle, without any hint of judgment or expectation. It was simple, straightforward, and yet it carried more thoughtfulness than words could capture. Alex finally stepped into the apartment fully, letting the door close behind them. The smell of the food grew stronger, filling the room and easing the tension in their shoulders. It was a simple meal, yet every detail felt deliberate. The rice was fluffy, the vegetables glistened as though freshly picked, and the soup sat in a small steaming bowl that seemed to radiate warmth. The table was modest, yet the care behind it made it feel like a feast prepared by someone who truly cared. "Sit down, Apache," said, motioning toward the chairs. "You've earned it. Take a moment for yourself tonight." Alex hesitated, then sank into the chair, the exhaustion in their legs and back finally finding relief. They glanced at Apache, who stood nearby waiting patiently, almost as if they were giving Alex permission to relax in a way that the world rarely allowed. The contrast between the chaos of the day and this quiet, thoughtful moment was striking. Here, in this tiny apartment, it felt like a pocket of calm, a place where nothing urgent demanded attention. As Alex reached for the first bite, they noticed the small details Apache had added. A little garnish on the plate, a folded napkin, a glass of water set just right. All signs that this was not a casual act. Someone had taken time, thought, and care, considering not just the food itself but the experience of eating it. For Alex, who had spent the day rushing and multitasking, this was a revelation. It reminded them that life wasn't just about getting through tasks or meeting deadlines. Sometimes it was about moments like these, small acts of kindness that made the world feel softer, more human. "Thank you," Alex said quietly, almost to themselves, yet loud enough for Apache to hear. Apache nodded, smiling. "You don't have to say it. Just enjoy it." For a while they ate in silence. The city outside was dark, the hum of distant traffic barely audible, and the apartment felt like a separate world entirely. Each bite of food seemed to carry more than flavor. It carried thoughtfulness, care, and an unspoken message. You are seen. You are valued. You are not alone. Alex found themselves thinking about how often life rushed by, how quickly days filled with responsibilities could pass without notice. And yet, here was a moment that demanded attention. A moment that invited them to pause, breathe, and simply be present. It was remarkable how something as ordinary as a meal could feel extraordinary when given with care. The evening stretched on, quiet and comforting. Alex realized that this small act of kindness, this dinner waiting for them, was more than just a gesture of food. It was a reminder of connection, of human empathy, of noticing the lives of others amidst our own busy routines. It made them think about the times they had passed by others in silence, the neighbors they barely knew, the people whose small struggles went unseen. And it made Alex feel a warmth they hadn't realized they had been missing, a warmth that could only come from being noticed, from being cared for without expectation. As the last few bites disappeared and the steam from the soup curled lazily into the air, Alex leaned back in the chair. They felt something shift inside them, a lightness that had been absent for weeks. The exhaustion of the day hadn't vanished, but it had been softened, diluted by an unexpected act of generosity. They realized that kindness, even in small doses, could transform the way one experienced life. Apache, noticing Alex's quiet reflection, simply smiled. There was no need to fill the silence with words. The moment itself was enough, a bridge of understanding between two people who had once been strangers, now sharing a quiet evening shaped by thoughtfulness and care. In that simple apartment, under the soft glow of the kitchen light, Alex understood something essential. Life's most meaningful moments often arrive unannounced, quietly and without fanfare. And sometimes it only takes a warm meal and a kind smile to remind a weary soul that they are not alone, that someone cares, and that the world, despite its chaos, still holds pockets of unexpected beauty. And as the night deepened, Alex felt gratitude settle in, not just for the meal or the company, but for the simple fact that kindness could be found in the most ordinary places, waiting quietly, ready to transform a moment into something unforgettable. The soft clink of the cutlery against the plates echoed quietly in the apartment as Alex took another bite. Each taste was comforting, but the question that lingered in their mind was unavoidable. Why had Apache gone through so much effort to prepare this meal? It wasn't just a casual gesture. It was thoughtful, careful, and intentional. Something that made Alex feel noticed in a way they had not felt for a long time. Apache leaned against the kitchen counter, casually sipping from a mug of tea. "You know," they began, their voice calm and steady, "I've seen you come home late almost every day for weeks. Sometimes you look so tired that I can almost feel it from here." They smiled, a little shyly. "I thought maybe tonight you shouldn't have to cook. You shouldn't have to rush or worry about what to eat. Just eat and take a moment for yourself." Alex paused, fork halfway to their mouth. The honesty in Apache's voice was surprising. No judgment, no expectation, just observation and concern. You really noticed?" Alex asked quietly. Apache nodded. "Of course. You don't have to be alone all the time, you know. Everyone deserves a little help sometimes, even if it's just dinner." The words sank in slowly. Alex hadn't realized how often they had been isolating themselves, caught up in the endless routine of work and responsibilities. There had been countless nights like this, long, silent walks home, skipping meals and forcing themselves to push through exhaustion, and yet no one had ever stopped to notice, to offer something as simple as a warm meal or a moment of care. Alex's fingers trembled slightly as they set the fork down. I don't know what to say, they admitted, their voice barely above a whisper. There was gratitude in their tone, yes, but also a strange feeling of vulnerability. It was rare, almost uncomfortable, to be seen so clearly by someone who wasn't a family member or a close friend. And yet, for the first time in a long while, it felt comforting instead of frightening. Apache tilted their head, looking at Alex with that steady, reassuring smile. You don't have to say anything. I didn't do this for thanks. I did it because, well, it felt like the right thing to do. You've been carrying so much on your own. And sometimes, we all need a little help, even if it comes in the smallest form. Alex leaned back in their chair, absorbing the moment. They realized how much they had been rushing through life without noticing the people around them, or even the small needs of their own body and mind. The day-to-day grind had been so consuming that simple acts of kindness had become almost invisible. And yet here, tonight, that kindness was undeniable, tangible, and transformative. The room fell into a comfortable silence. The steam from the dishes curled in the warm air. The soft hum of the refrigerator was almost melodic, and the city outside seemed to slow, letting the quiet stretch and settle around them. For the first time in weeks, Alex felt the tightness in their chest ease slightly. It wasn't just the food that was comforting. It was the understanding, the acknowledgement, and the simple human connection that Apache offered without question. Finally, Alex spoke, their voice steadying. I don't think anyone has done something like this for me in a long time, maybe ever. Apache shrugged, a modest gesture that made Alex smile. Well, sometimes people don't notice, or they don't have the time. But that doesn't mean no one cares. It just means you have to let a little kindness in when it comes your way. The conversation shifted naturally from there, flowing like water. Apache shared small stories of their own, days filled with errands, moments of struggle and the quiet satisfaction they found in helping others. Each story was simple but meaningful, revealing a character that was attentive, empathetic, and gentle. Alex listened, realizing how refreshing it was to hear someone talk about life without complaint or boastfulness, someone who could acknowledge hardship without turning it into drama. Alex found themselves opening up too. Slowly, hesitantly, they spoke about the pressures of work, the isolation they often felt, and the small disappointments that seemed to accumulate day by day. With every word, the weight they had been carrying seemed lighter. Apache listened carefully, nodding occasionally, but never interrupting or offering empty advice. It was the kind of listening that made a person feel truly valued, a rare and beautiful thing. As the meal went on, Alex noticed another detail that touched them deeply. Apache had not only prepared the food but had arranged it thoughtfully. The vegetables were not just cooked but presented with care. The soup was in a small, elegant bowl, and a tiny sprig of herbs rested delicately on top. Even the napkins were folded neatly. It was a small attention to detail, but it spoke volumes. Someone had thought about what would make this meal pleasant, comforting, and memorable, not just edible. You didn't have to do all this, Alex said quietly, almost to themselves. Apache shrugged again, smiling. Maybe, but I wanted to. There's nothing like seeing someone feel a little better after a hard day. And honestly, it makes me happy too. It's nice to know I can make a small difference, even if it's just for a single evening. Alex smiled, a genuine smile that reached their eyes for the first time that night. The exhaustion still lingered, yes, but it no longer felt crushing. The warmth of the food, the attention, and the quiet conversation had softened the edges of their day, giving them a rare sense of relief and belonging. Time passed almost unnoticed. The plates grew lighter, the steam faded, and the apartment seemed warmer, cozier. For the first time, Alex realized how much they had been missing in their life. Not in material things, but in moments of connection. How easy it had been to drift through days without really noticing the people around them. and how much brighter life could feel when someone truly cared. "You know," Alex said finally, leaning back and stretching their arms slightly, "I think I've been so focused on surviving my own days that I forgot how important small moments like this can be. I don't think I realized it until tonight." Apache's eyes softened. "It's easy to forget. Life moves fast and we get caught up in our own problems. But moments like this, they remind us that we're not alone. Even when we feel invisible, someone somewhere sees us." There was a pause, a moment heavy with thought and reflection. Alex realized they hadn't felt this level of calm and acknowledgement in a very long time. The world outside might still be chaotic, still demanding and noisy. But here, in this apartment, there was a sanctuary. And it was created not by walls or furniture, but by the simple act of caring. Alex reached for the last piece of food, savoring it slowly, intentionally. It was as though they were trying to imprint the moment into memory, knowing that nights like this were rare and precious. They felt gratitude not only for the meal itself but for Apache, who had seen them, cared enough to act, and created a space where they could finally rest, even briefly, from the burdens of life. As the meal concluded, Apache began to tidy up, quietly clearing the dishes and wiping the table.
"You don't have to worry about this," they said, their voice calm.
"I don't need a thank you, just take care of yourself, all right?" Alex watched, feeling a swell of appreciation.
"I will," they said. "And I want to say thank you. Not just for the food, but for noticing, for caring."
Apache smiled once more. Sometimes noticing is the hardest part. The rest just comes naturally. Alex felt something shift inside, a mix of relief, gratitude, and renewed perspective. It was strange how a simple dinner, shared quietly with a neighbor, could alter the mood of an entire day, even an entire week. It wasn't about obligation or duty. It was about kindness, empathy, and the unspoken connections that make life meaningful. The night deepened, and the city outside continued its steady rhythm, unaware of the small miracle unfolding inside the apartment. Alex realized they were no longer carrying the day's weight in the same way. There was still fatigue, yes, but also warmth, presence, and a quiet hope that life could be gentler than it often seemed. And as they sat there, side by side with Apache in the soft glow of the kitchen light, Alex understood something profound. Sometimes the simplest gestures, the smallest acts of noticing and caring, could have the deepest impact. That night dinner was more than food. It was acknowledgement, connection, and a reminder that even in the most ordinary places, kindness could bloom quietly yet powerfully, transforming not just an evening, but a heart. After the meal, the apartment settled into a quiet calm. Alex leaned back in their chair, feeling a fullness not just from the food but from the strange, comforting sense of being cared for. The warmth of the evening was still lingering, like sunlight trapped in a room after dusk. For a while, neither Alex nor Apache spoke. They simply sat, the soft ticking of the kitchen clock marking the time, letting the silence fill the space with something gentle and almost sacred. Finally, Alex broke the quiet. I can't help but wonder," they said slowly, "why you went through all this. Did you just decide tonight would be the night?" Apache smiled, a small, thoughtful smile. "Not exactly," they said. "I've been thinking about this for a while. You see, it's not just tonight. I've noticed you for weeks. How you rush home, how tired you look, how you try to manage everything by yourself. And honestly, I was worried. Not in a scary way, just concerned, I guess. I wanted to do something small, something simple, that might make your evening a little lighter." Alex felt a lump form in their throat. It was strange, overwhelming in a gentle way, to realize that someone had been paying attention to their life without asking for anything in return. I never thought anyone would notice. I feel invisible a lot of the time," they admitted quietly. Apache leaned closer, resting their elbows on the counter. "You're not invisible," they said firmly. "I notice. And I wanted to remind you that even when life feels heavy, there are small ways people can show that they care. Sometimes that's all it takes. A meal, A smile, a word, nothing huge, just noticing someone's effort and offering something in return. Alex took a deep breath, letting the words sink in. There was truth in them, a quiet wisdom that touched a part of their heart that had been neglected for too long. The loneliness they had carried, the endless weight of responsibilities didn't vanish, of course, but suddenly it didn't feel as heavy. The recognition that someone cared, it was almost as restorative as sleep or a good meal, I guess. I never realized it before, Alex said slowly, how much even a small gesture can change things. Tonight, you've done that for me. I can't stop thinking about it. It feels like someone finally saw me. Apache nodded. That's exactly it. That's all I wanted. And I think sometimes it's the small things that matter the most. Life doesn't always give us big moments, but it gives us opportunities to do little things for each other. A kind word, a warm meal, a listening ear. They may seem small, but they're not. They're everything. In the right moment. Alex looked down at the table, at the remnants of the meal. They noticed again how carefully Apache had prepared everything. The way the vegetables were cut, the soup placed just so, the gentle curl of steam rising from each dish. It was obvious that nothing had been thrown together. Every detail had been considered, every part arranged with care. And it wasn't just about food. It was about thought, attention, and the quiet message that they were important enough to receive such care. You really put thought into this, Alex said, almost to themselves. It's more than a meal. I don't know, it's like a reminder that someone is paying attention. That someone cares. Apache smiled softly.
Exactly. And I think that's why I do it.
Everyone needs to feel seen sometimes. Even small acts can remind us that we matter, that we're not just another face passing through the day. The conversation drifted naturally into stories of their past. Apache shared tales from their own life, times when they had felt invisible or overwhelmed, times when a simple gesture from someone else had changed everything.
One evening, a friend had left a small note on their doorstep when they were struggling with school and work. That single note, barely a paragraph long, had made them feel noticed, supported, and valued.
From that moment, Apache realized the power of small acts of kindness. That lesson had stayed with them, guiding how they approached others, even strangers. Hearing this, Alex felt a warmth spread inside them that had nothing to do with the food. The story made the evening even more meaningful. It wasn't just about a single act. It was about the intention, the thought, and the understanding behind it. Apache had acted not because it was required or because it would be acknowledged, but because they understood the impact of noticing, caring, and offering comfort. Alex thought about the days they had spent rushing home, alone, trying to hold everything together. They realized that part of their exhaustion wasn't just physical, it was emotional.
They had been carrying the weight of life's demands without anyone to share it with, without someone to remind them that it was okay to pause, breathe, and accept help. And now, sitting here, eating a meal prepared by someone who truly saw them, that weight seemed lighter, almost liftable.
You know, Alex said, their voice quiet but steady, I think I've been doing it wrong all this time. I thought being strong meant handling everything alone, never asking for help. But maybe it's not about that. Maybe being strong is knowing when to accept care, when to let someone else in, even a little.
Apache's smile widened slightly,
a flicker of pride or understanding in their eyes. Exactly. Strength isn't about isolation. It's about resilience, and that includes allowing others to support you. Sometimes we carry our burdens alone because we feel like we have to. But the truth is, sharing the weight, even just a little, can make life a lot easier. Alex nodded, feeling a sense of clarity they hadn't had in months. The apartment felt even warmer now, as though the simple act of understanding and conversation had added another layer of comfort to the space. The outside world could wait. Tonight was about presence, connection, and the acknowledgement that even ordinary lives could hold extraordinary meaning when someone chose to notice. I never thought a meal could do this, Alex admitted, gesturing vaguely at the table. "It's just food, right? But it feels like more than that. It feels like hope, in a way. Like someone finally cares about how my day went, how I'm doing. That's not something I feel every day." Apache's voice was gentle, almost a whisper. "It's more than food because it comes from thought and care. The meal itself is secondary. The important part is the message behind it. You are seen. You are valued. You deserve a moment of calm." Alex took a deep breath, feeling a quiet sense of gratitude swell in their chest. The loneliness that had been gnawing at them felt less sharp. The stress of the week seemed softened by the warmth that filled the room, by the acknowledgement that someone had taken the time to care. And with that, Alex realized that life didn't always have to be endured alone. Sometimes kindness came unannounced, quietly, in forms as simple as a meal, a smile, or a gentle question. "You really are something special," Alex said softly. "Not just for the meal, but for seeing people, noticing things. It's rare, you know, and it matters." Apache laughed lightly, shaking their head. "I'm not special, I just pay attention. That's all it takes. Looking around, noticing the people in your life, and doing a little something when you can. Anyone can do it. It just matters that you care enough to try." The conversation wound down, but the impact of it lingered. Alex felt a shift in their perspective, a subtle but profound change in how they viewed human connection and the power of noticing others. They had come home exhausted, expecting nothing more than a quiet, lonely evening. Instead, they had found food, comfort, attention, and perhaps most importantly, understanding. And that understanding carried weight far beyond the simple meal. As the night deepened and the city's lights twinkled through the apartment window, Alex sat quietly, letting the moment settle. Apache moved around the kitchen, quietly cleaning up, but their presence remained comforting, steady, and grounding. Alex realized that the memory of tonight, the meal, the conversation, the care, would stay with them far longer than any workday, stress, or exhaustion ever could be in untamed. And in that quiet apartment, under the soft glow of the kitchen light, Alex understood a lesson they would carry forever. Sometimes the most profound kindness comes in small, thoughtful gestures. Sometimes seeing someone, noticing them, and offering a little care can change everything. Tonight, they had been reminded of that truth in the simplest, most beautiful way possible. After the meal and the long conversation, Alex felt a strange calm settle over them. It was not the kind of tired calm that comes after a day of endless work or exertion. This was a lighter, softer calm, like a heavy curtain being lifted off their chest. The apartment was quiet now, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city outside filling the spaces between thoughts. Alex sat back in the chair, staring at the table where the meal had been, noticing the subtle details that had made it special. The way the napkins had been folded, the careful arrangement of dishes, the delicate steam rising from the soup. It was hard to put into words exactly what they were feeling. Gratitude, yes. Surprise, definitely. But more than anything, it was awareness, a heightened sense of the presence of someone else in their life who genuinely cared. It had been so long since anyone had done something like this for them, so long that they had almost forgotten it was possible. Alex's mind began to wander, thinking about the days, weeks, and months they had spent running through routines, without noticing the people around them. How many times had they hurried past neighbors in the hallway, barely nodding and greeting? How often had they ignored the subtle signs of loneliness in others, too caught up in their own world to notice? And now, sitting here, they realized that they had been missing something important, the quiet, small ways people could connect, support, and care for each other. The thought made them pause. It was strange, almost shocking how quickly life could become a series of tasks and obligations. Work, deadlines, responsibilities, and even social obligations could fill every hour of the day, leaving little space for reflection, gratitude, or connection. Alex had been so focused on keeping up, on surviving, that they had forgotten how life could also be filled with small, beautiful moments. Moments like this evening, where a neighbor's kindness had turned an ordinary night into something remarkable. They thought about Apache, who had spent time preparing the meal, thinking about every detail and sitting with them afterward, sharing stories and listening without judgment. It was clear now that the gesture had not been about food. It had been about understanding, empathy, and connection. The food had been the medium, the conversation the bridge, and the care the message. In that moment, Alex understood how much power there was in simply noticing someone else, in taking the time to make their day just a little easier. Alex leaned back in their chair, letting their thoughts drift. They thought about the people in their own life, the colleagues, friends, and neighbors they had interacted with but perhaps never truly seen. How many of them had been silently struggling, quietly carrying burdens while Alex was busy with their own. The realization was sobering, but it also brought a spark of determination. They wanted to be more attentive, more present, more aware of the lives of those around them. They wanted to be the kind of person who could make a difference, even in a small way, for someone else. The apartment felt warmer now, almost alive with the memory of the evening. The lighting, the faint aroma that lingered from the meal, the soft sounds from the city outside, all of it combined to create a sense of peace and reflection. Alex realized that life did not always have to be a constant rush. There were moments to pause, to breathe, to reflect, and to appreciate the subtle acts of kindness that could transform an ordinary day into something meaningful. They thought back to the earlier conversation with Apache, remembering the words about strength and support. Strength isn't about isolation, it's about resilience, and that includes allowing others to support you. Those words resonated deeply. Alex realized that they had been defining strength in a narrow, almost harsh way, equating it with doing everything alone, never asking for help, and enduring burdens in silence. But now they understood that real strength could include accepting care, sharing the weight of life, and allowing someone else to help, even in a small way. The reflection brought a subtle smile to Alex's face. They thought about the times they had refused help, thinking it would make them weak, and now they saw how unnecessary that belief had been. Life was not a solo journey. It was filled with connections, support, and shared experiences. And accepting those moments did not diminish them. It enriched their life, giving depth, warmth, and meaning to their existence. Alex's thoughts shifted to gratitude, not just for Apache's gesture, but for the realization it had sparked. Gratitude for the possibility of human kindness, for the capacity to connect, for the chance to be seen and heard. It was a powerful feeling, one that lifted them in a way that food, sleep, or any material comfort alone could not. Gratitude, they realized, was an active emotion. It required recognition, reflection, and a willingness to carry that awareness forward. They thought about the future, imagining how life might be different if they approached it with this new perspective. Small gestures could become more meaningful, and interactions with others could carry intention and care. They could notice the people around them, acknowledge their presence, and offer kindness without expecting anything in return. It was a simple idea, yet revolutionary in its potential to change how they lived each day. Alex also considered the personal impact of Apache's kindness. Beyond the meal and the conversation, it had reminded them of the importance of slowing down, of being present in the moment, and of reflecting on their own emotions. For weeks they had been moving through life like a machine, efficient, capable, but emotionally detached. Tonight had reminded them that life's richness came from connection, empathy, and awareness. The room grew quieter as the night deepened, and Alex allowed themselves to fully feel the stillness. The exhaustion of the day was still present, but it had transformed from a heavy, oppressive weight into a gentle reminder of the effort they had put into their life. And now, paired with the warmth of Apache's gesture, it felt lighter, manageable, even meaningful. They realized that work, stress, and responsibilities were not burdens to endure alone, but opportunities to grow, reflect, and connect with others along the way. Alex's reflection turned inward. They thought about their own capacity for empathy, for noticing the needs of others, and for offering care. How often had they walked past someone struggling without acknowledging it? How many moments had been lost because they were too focused on themselves? The answer was sobering, but it inspired a quiet resolve. They wanted to be more attentive, more intentional, more compassionate, not just toward friends or family, but toward anyone whose life intersected with theirs, even briefly. They thought of Apache again, and the memory of the smile, the gentle voice, the patient listening. These were the details that made the evening unforgettable. It was not the food alone, but the thoughtfulness behind it. The care, the observation, the willingness to act without expectation. All of these elements created a moment that would stay with Alex forever. And in that realization, they found hope. Hope that life could be softer, more meaningful, and more connected than they had allowed themselves to believe. Alex also reflected on the importance of reciprocity, not in a transactional sense, but in the sense of passing kindness forward. They realized that the impact of a single act could ripple outward, touching others in ways that might never be fully known. Apache had chosen to act tonight, and that action had transformed Alex's perspective. Perhaps they thought their own actions could do the same for someone else in the future. That thought was empowering, giving them a sense of purpose and responsibility beyond the demands of work and routine. The night deepened further, and Alex finally allowed themselves to stand and move toward the window. Looking out, they saw the city stretched out in quiet darkness, the lights of buildings twinkling like stars fallen to the ground. For the first time in a long time, they felt connected, not just to the city or to the world, but to the invisible threads that linked human lives together. Each person was part of a larger story, each gesture of care or attention contributing to a tapestry of connection that made life meaningful. As they turned back toward the table, Alex felt a sense of peace and clarity. The evening had been transformative, not because it had been extraordinary, but because it had been real, thoughtful, and deeply human. The simple act of being seen, of receiving care without expectation, had reminded them of the value of connection, empathy, and reflection. And that reminder, they realized, was far more powerful than anything else they could have experienced that night. Alex sat down once more, letting the stillness envelop them. They felt the exhaustion of the day begin to fade, replaced by a quiet resolve to carry this awareness forward. Life would still have its challenges, its long hours, and its demands, but now they understood that they did not have to face it alone. Kindness existed, people cared, and even small gestures could transform ordinary moments into something extraordinary. And as the night stretched on, Alex allowed themselves to fully embrace the lesson of the evening, that life was not only about surviving, but about noticing, caring, and being present. They understood that the world could be harsh, busy, and overwhelming, but it could also be gentle, attentive, and full of small wonders. The evening with Apache had been a reminder of that truth, a lesson wrapped in a simple meal, a quiet conversation, and the warmth of human care. Alex felt a quiet smile form on their face, the first genuine smile in days. They knew that this night would stay with them, shaping how they approached life, relationships, and even themselves. The reflection, the gratitude, and the sense of connection were gifts that could not be measured, but their impact would be felt for a lifetime. And with that thought, Alex finally allowed themselves to rest, knowing that tomorrow could be faced not with exhaustion and isolation, but with awareness, empathy, and hope. The following morning, Alex woke with a sense of calm they hadn't felt in weeks. The sunlight filtered gently through the curtains, painting the room in soft gold. For a moment, they lay in bed, reflecting on the previous evening, the meal, the conversation, the quiet understanding. All of it replayed in their mind, like a comforting memory that refused to fade. It was strange how a single evening could leave such a deep impression. Life outside still demanded attention. Emails needed replies, work tasks loomed, and the usual rush of responsibilities awaited. But for the first time in a long while, Alex felt ready to face them. The heavy weight of constant fatigue and isolation had lifted, replaced by a subtle, steady energy born of care, understanding, and connection. After a slow breakfast, Alex found themselves thinking about Apache. They realized that their neighbor's simple gesture had not just been about food. It had been about reaching out, about offering a bridge between two lives that, until now, had intersected only briefly. And it made Alex think, how many small gestures went unnoticed every day? How many opportunities to connect, to show kindness, had they missed because they were too caught up in their own world. Determined to carry the lesson forward, Alex decided to make an effort to change their approach. Small, deliberate steps could make a difference. Even the simplest interactions, a greeting in the hallway, asking how someone's day went, offering help without waiting to be asked, could create a ripple of positivity. They realized that kindness wasn't measured by grand acts, but by the consistency of small, thoughtful gestures.
Later that afternoon, Alex found Apache in the hallway, heading out with a grocery bag in hand. "Hey!" Alex called out, smiling genuinely. Apache turned, their expression lighting up at the greeting. "Good morning. How's the start of your day?" Apache asked. Alex paused for a moment, savoring the opportunity to engage without rushing past. Then replied, "Better than usual, actually. Thanks to you, I had one of the most meaningful evenings I've had in a long time." Apache smiled, brushing off the compliment with a modest shrug. "I'm glad. Really. It's nice to hear that something I did had an impact." Alex felt a warmth in their chest, a reminder that recognition was as meaningful as the act itself. "You know," Alex said thoughtfully, "I think I understand now why you did it. It wasn't just about dinner. It was about noticing, about making sure I felt seen, and it made a bigger difference than I expected." Apache nodded, a small grin on their face. "Exactly. That's all I wanted. Everyone needs to feel seen sometimes. And it's amazing how much a little gesture can change someone's perspective, even for a short while." The conversation lingered for a moment before they parted ways, but the impact stayed with Alex. Throughout the day, they found themselves more attentive, more present. They noticed neighbors' greetings, smiled at strangers, and even offered a small compliment to a coworker. The effects were subtle, but they could feel the difference. The world seemed slightly warmer, more connected, more alive. Days passed, and the bond between Alex and Apache continued to grow. They started sharing small conversations in the hallway, exchanging recipes and stories, even meeting occasionally for tea. Each interaction was simple, yet meaningful. Alex realized that life didn't need to be full of grand gestures to be rich. It just needed attention, presence, and care. One evening, as they both sat on the small balcony of Alex's apartment, looking out at the city lights, Alex spoke softly. "You know, I never expected a neighbor to become such an important part of my life. I always thought we'd just nod at each other, maybe say hi in passing. But now, it feels different. I feel connected, and it's because of the kindness you showed me." Apache smiled, their eyes reflecting the glow of the city lights. "I think that's the beauty of life. Connections can happen anywhere, with anyone. We just have to be open to noticing them and nurturing them. And I think you've done the same for me in return, just by being present, being grateful, being yourself." Alex felt a warmth in their heart, a sense of gratitude that went beyond words. It wasn't just about the evening meal or the conversation. It was about understanding, empathy, and the quiet support they could offer each other. They realized that relationships, even small ones, could be life-changing when nurtured with care and attention. The evening stretched on, filled with laughter, shared stories, and the gentle comfort of companionship. They talked about their childhood memories, their favorite books, and even the small dreams they had put aside over the years. Each story deepened their understanding of one another, revealing the layers of personality, experience, and kindness that had always been there but never fully recognized. Alex found themselves reflecting on how much this connection had changed their perspective. Life, they realized, was not about rushing from one task to another, trying to survive each day. It was about noticing moments of beauty, opportunities for care, and the potential for connection in even the smallest gestures. Apache's simple act of kindness had opened a door to a richer, more meaningful way of living, one where attention and empathy mattered just as much as effort and responsibility. As the night grew quieter, Alex felt a sense of peace and hope that they hadn't experienced in a long time. The apartment, once just a space to retreat to after a long day, had become a place of warmth, reflection, and connection, and the presence of Apache, a neighbor-turned-friend, had made all the difference. "I think I've learned something important," Alex said finally.
looking at Apache with sincerity. "I've learned that small gestures matter, that noticing someone, caring for them even in the smallest way can change a life, and that accepting kindness doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." Apache nodded, their expression calm and steady. "Exactly. Life isn't about doing everything alone. It's about sharing, noticing, and caring. The world can be harsh and busy, but moments like this remind us that there's kindness everywhere, if we're willing to see it."
Alex smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. They knew that the evening, the meal, the conversation, and the connection would stay with them forever.
It was more than just a story to tell. It was a lesson, a reminder of what truly mattered in life. Over the following weeks, Alex began to carry this lesson into all aspects of their life. They noticed coworkers who were stressed, offering encouragement and small gestures of support. They checked on neighbors with a friendly smile or a brief conversation, realizing that even these small acts could have an impact. They even started preparing small surprises for friends and family, inspired by the care Apache had shown them. Each act, no matter how minor, brought a sense of fulfillment and warmth. Alex realized that life's meaning wasn't in grand achievements alone, but in these small human connections. And with each interaction, they felt their own heart grow lighter, their perspective more compassionate, and their understanding of kindness more profound. One quiet evening, as they walked home from work, Alex thought about the journey of the past few weeks. From exhaustion and isolation to warmth and connection, the transformation had been subtle but undeniable. They understood now that life could be harsh and demanding, but it could also be gentle and beautiful when approached with care, attention, and empathy. And as they approached their apartment, they saw Apache waiting with a small smile, holding a bag of groceries. "Thought I'd bring over something simple for dinner tonight," Apache said. "Just a little something to share." Alex laughed softly, feeling a surge of happiness. "I think this is becoming a tradition," they replied warmly. "And I couldn't be happier about it." They walked inside together, carrying the groceries, setting the table, and preparing the meal side by side. It wasn't elaborate, but it was filled with laughter, conversation, and shared effort. The apartment, once a quiet and lonely place, had become a hub of connection, warmth, and care. And it was all because of a single thoughtful gesture that had sparked a ripple effect, transforming not only Alex's life, but also the way they approached the world. As they sat down to eat, Alex felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the food, but for the lesson, the friendship, and the understanding that had grown between them. The evening wasn't just a meal, it was a celebration of connection, empathy, and the quiet power of kindness. Looking across the table at Apache, Alex realized that life didn't have to be endured alone. It could be shared, celebrated, and enriched by the small acts of care we offer one another. And with that understanding, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them not just with resilience, but with compassion, presence, and the knowledge that human connection could light even the darkest moments. The night stretched on, filled with stories, laughter, and the comforting rhythm of companionship. And in that small apartment, under the soft glow of the lights, Alex understood a truth they would carry forever. Life's greatest treasures often come in the form of small, thoughtful gestures. Gestures that can transform ordinary days into moments of unforgettable warmth, hope, and joy.